Welcome to the Breakfast Leadership Show, where we interview global thought leaders on business, leadership, and life. Here's your host, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and chief burnout officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network, Michael Levitt.
Welcome back. I've got Josh Rossi on the line. Josh, how are you?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm awesome. Great to have you on the show. You've got an interesting backstory, a lot of things you've worked on in your career so far. So why don't you share a little bit about some of the things that you do and that you're working on?
Yeah, so I initially started as a artist when I was younger, got into photography, and just struggled trying to figure out like how to make money as a photographer, basically. My dad was an entrepreneur, same with my mom. And so I grew up with the idea of entrepreneurship. That's the only option. And so I never had a 9 to 5. Closest thing was flood cleanup, where I'd work, half the day, and then they'd call me at 4 a.m. to go clean up a bunch of poo in somebody's house that flooded. So that was sort of the catalyst or the thing that got me to want to be an entrepreneur even more and to push myself. So anyway, just went through a ton of different lessons, got into photography, and started working with some bigger clients. Clients include like DC Comics, Paramount, Damon John from Shark Tank, and a bunch of others. And so from there, I kept thinking, like, how do I I don't want to say make the most amount of money, but it's a business. I was like, me as a photographer, like I'm going to, these clients, I'm getting paid for these clients, but what's the next step? The next step is who could I provide something to where we could expand my business? And that was to photographers. I was getting these big jobs and I was like, why don't I just teach photographers how to do this? And so I decided to start an online course, and I was like, I don't even know if I'm qualified to do this. But I just did it, and that sort of took off, and then, started more businesses from there. But basically in the middle of all that, I've also been doing a lot of charity work, and people might know me from, this work. We did the Justice League Kids series, hit 240 million views worldwide. And is where we took kids with cancer and turned them into superheroes. And so that stuff, that's charitable, we don't profit off of that or anything, but that's a whole other side of learning, charity, like fundraising, also PR, how to get exposure. So, I've just been learning along the way. It's the entrepreneur journey, basically.
That's great. One of the things that jumped out at me right away was with your photography work, you say, okay, what's next? Because some people, when they launch a business or they're going to work somewhere or they do anything, they say, okay, I'm going to do this. It's like, okay, well, what's next? Are you just going to stop there? What are you going to grow from that? What's the next step? How do you want to grow your business? What are some different things you could do? And, working with, the names that you mentioned, DC Comics and Damon John and everybody else that you've dealt with, those are well-known brands, and you did that work. And for many people, they say, oh, this is good. I'm working in this particular arena of these high caliber businesses and individuals. And a lot of people say, okay, that's good. But, things like right now with the pandemic, being a photographer, and I know, several of them, it's been a challenging time for many of them because of physical distancing and can't travel. And, somebody that I know pretty well, usually takes photos of marathons. And they're, virtual marathons are a little bit different to take a photo of because there's nobody out on the track running. So for him, it's been a huge adjustment to adapt and do some different things. So, the work that you've done is such that you're able to kind of pivot around, from my observation, to do different things. So when a particular segment of the work that you do, drops off a little bit, there's something else that can pick things up. And of course, with the launch of the online courses and teaching other photographers how to do what you did well, I think goes a long way in being able to have income created from the knowledge that you have in a way that you can share that with others, but also profit from that knowledge.
Yeah, I've always I don't know why I do this, but like I've always looked, so I read the 4-Hour Workweek a long time ago, and something stuck out to me specifically in that he was that Tim Ferriss was completely miserable in the company that he'd created, that he was a slave. And I never realized that before. I thought, wow, like I thought entrepreneurship meant freedom, but he was a slave. And so from then on, I started thinking differently. Every time I would start something new or just be stuck, I'd always think like, where do I want to be? And that sounds very generic, but it was more like, what is the lifestyle that I want to be living? The exact lifestyle. Like my mom was a therapist, and she was into NLP and a bunch of other stuff. She had her own clinic and all that. And she would always teach me as a kid, like she never taught me what the names of these principles were, but she taught me how to sort of visualize and control my mind and like all these other things, which helped me out later on in life. But she taught me this thing of like projecting, where when you want to see a result. I would play soccer when I was younger, and I'd do this all the time. She's like, okay, you want to be more confident, you want to be better at soccer, put yourself in a movie theater and imagine, just look at yourself on the screen, the result that you want. You're playing soccer really well, you're dribbling, you're scoring, and then be really detailed with it. And then the second thing is, now you got to put yourself in that. And so now put yourself in that movie and feel all the emotions, feel everything about it. And that would turn out really good. I mean, it was like you're training your mind to think that way. And so after reading the 4-Hour Workweek, I thought that way regarding to business. I started thinking, okay, what is my lifestyle? What do I want my lifestyle to look like, in 5 years or 10 years? And if I got a business opportunity that was like, hey, you could make a bunch of money selling toilet paper, you'd be a millionaire, I would probably turn it down, because I'm like, okay, selling toilet paper, what does that lead to? I'd have to get a factory, and then I'd have to get this and that. And then it's like a flooded market. And maybe I'd be unhappy in the end. So, when it came to like starting the photography courses and software and a few other things I've done now, it's always been with the end in mind. And it's never really been about like super quick money, because I feel like people, that's one big fear of mine, is people get stuck in what they're doing and they're miserable. Like I care more about freedom. That's like, a lot of entrepreneurs do, obviously. I care more about freedom and joy than like just money, I guess.
That's a great way to look at it. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs fall into the trap of trading their 9 to 5 to a 9 to midnight type of world. And that's not healthy
for the same income.
And it ends up, if you calculate it at an hourly rate, you're like, you'd be better off going to work at a fast food restaurant. You'd probably take home more money. And when you leave work, you've left work. You don't, go, okay, well, I got to work on that or that presentation, or I got to work on that segment of the online course, or whatever entrepreneurs happen to do. They overwhelm themselves with a lot of things. And much like investing, you got to be in it for the long term. Yes, you can make a quick return on stocks, for example. Yes, if you pick the right stock and you buy it before it goes up and you sell it before it drops again, then sure, but that goes to your quick money thing. There's a lot of time and effort and energy to do that quick buck type of situation, and you're better off building something that will give you the income that you want in a way where you have the freedom of working on it when you want to work on it, where you want to work, how, and all that. Because that's my definition of freedom, is being able to do what I want, where I want, when I want, and how I want. And when you have that control as an entrepreneur and you really get crystal clear on what you want to do, makes a big difference. But unfortunately, too many entrepreneurs launch into it and they don't really know what they ultimately want to do long term.
Yeah, I think people should just get in and just do stuff. Another curse is, like, we've heard it over and over, is like people just don't, they just think about things. They just think about ideas, and ideas are cheap. Like, I got asked yesterday, do I have people sign NDAs for my ideas? And most of the time, no, because it's just an idea. Like, there's so much more that's involved that you have to learn about. And, it's just about getting started and just doing the first steps. I mean, there's so many freaking steps with entrepreneurship, like so many steps, years and years and years of learning how to do things. Like rarely does somebody just hit it big. Like rarely does somebody just, you hear those stories because those are the only ones that are on the news, or those are the only ones that are on social media. You don't hear like a million others that are still on their journey, learning. And I would rather be the one that actually learns than just getting quick success, not knowing how I got it. I'd rather be the one that learns and knows how to replicate it in the future. Because what's happened in my career is initially, so I got a really bad concussion years ago, probably 6 years ago, where I lost my memory. And it was only temporary, but like I fell on the concrete really hard after playing soccer and just totally wiped it clean. And I barely knew. I didn't even know I had kids, and I had 2 kids at the time. And I didn't even know how to do my photography anymore, because I came in and I saw pictures that I had done. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. Who did that? And they're like, my family's like, you did that. I mean, how weird is that? Thinking like you're like separated from your body almost. And I kind of had this panic attack thinking, how am I actually making money? How am I supporting my family? And it completely blew me away. And so from there, I started basically just focusing on like what I was telling you earlier, just focusing on the future, but just being okay with struggling and just learning. And now I'm able to produce things. That's why I say I'd rather like go through the hardship, because now during a pandemic, I've actually 2020 was one of my best years, and it's like, if I didn't have those skills, it wouldn't have been my best year. And then some years that have been bad, I've been able to use my marketing skills and, other skills that I've learned along the way to get jobs. And so the ultimate job security isn't to get a job for somebody else. And it's not just to start your own business, but it's to have skills. That's the ultimate job security is skills. So it's like, whatever you do, just get skilled. It's not like people go into business, like, I want to own a business. Like, okay, what are you going to do in the business? Like you can't just be good at everything. So learning skills, I think that's one of the biggest things that's helped me.
Oh, definitely. And it helps you become as close to pandemic proof as possible. Having those skills and different things that you can do when all of a sudden you're not able to go to places as easily or work with a group of people, and you have to do work via Zoom or what. That's like, okay, or whatever platform you happen to use. Like, okay, what can I do for the businesses that are still running or new businesses or all of that? And when you can interchange and basically have a toolbox of skills, it makes such a big difference. And how you were describing it's like, I don't want the quick win, but I want to learn along the way. It's I always tell people one of my favorite leadership books of all time is The Tortoise and the Hare. And it's because the rabbit's running all around, going crazy, running really fast, but the tortoise wins the race because the tortoise is being methodical and running the race the right way. And I've always thought that way when I did something. Yes, okay, so it's taken me 2 years or 3 years to do this, when sure, I could have paid and fast forwarded some things and skipped some things. But it's like, and what you said before was, I can take these lessons and these learnings that I have, and I can apply them to doing something different, another skill or another trait or another opportunity. And when you do that, you have a better understanding of how your business works, so you can have the clarity to see, oh, I need to make an adjustment here, and I need to focus a little bit more on the marketing side of what I do. And oh, no, there's some opportunities for the photography, or working with DC or Ray Fisher or whoever, and you end up getting in a situation where it's like, okay, I can kind of flow through it. And for you, based on how you've done it, it's probably as seamless as possible, because you just say, okay, well, this is what I'm going to be doing with Adobe, or this is what I'm going to be doing with this other team. And you just do it.
I mean, 100%. Yeah. I love that. I love the tortoise and the hare thing, because the tortoise, like the whole point of going, like if they're going uphill, the tortoise, he's going so slow that his muscles are able to build up, so he can go the distance. And business is the same thing. I'm just so sick of like social media, seeing all these people that made it rich quick. It's just like not at all what it's like, and I know a lot of people that take years to get there, and then here's the funny thing. A lot of the people that you see that will get good results, they're the ones that that have these spikes, and then they're going to have really bad drops too. That's the problem. It's like, and I know there's this one guy that, one of my friends, good friends, and, he's talking all high and mighty about how much he's making, about this, that, his investments. But it's like, you're probably going to crash just as hard as you're going up. So it's better just to go slow, learn skills. Because, for example, I used to think that it was torture almost when I was first learning. And my daughter has the same thing. She goes to school and she comes back. She's like, I hate math, Dad. Why is it so hard? I'm like, well, that's the whole point. Like, when you're learning stuff, it is hard. It's never easy. If it's easy, then it's pointless learning, so go towards the hard learning, because when I was, for example, first starting my business, this is like 15 years ago, I had to learn WordPress, and that was the biggest freaking nightmare. Like, learning how to do stuff on the back end, how to do HTML coding. And, it's like, I'm not a coder. I just want to own a business. And I thought it was just torture. And I thought it was like cursed, having to learn these things and having to learn video editing and having to learn how to do my websites and my own design. But then now, like, so I've done photography, but then it's like, oh, okay, I can do digital marketing. So then during hard times, I've pitched other clients like, hey, I can do digital marketing. They're like, oh, sure. It's like, hey, I can do video too. Oh, and I can manage your website. So I have like a few clients where it's like, okay, I'm doing my own thing, but then I also have some clients over here. I'm selling online courses. I have a software, selling supplements. I'm doing this, that, so it's just back to my point that it's skills. It's not, and it takes time. Don't think that you have to have success like right away.
No, anything worth achieving takes time and effort. And, I agree with you. The ones that hit it off fast, it can crash just as fast. I've seen the other day, I was flipping around on Netflix, I think, and I came across, it was a documentary about people that have won the lottery. And some of the horror stories of, people winning 20, 40, 100, $200 million and being dead ass broke, 5 years later. I'm like, how? And, they go through the gory horror stories and it's not just because you have, 5,000 cousins that you didn't know about, but it was more of the lifestyle. And, one guy had significant addictions and, blew it all on drugs and has, nothing to show for it. I'm like, you go a little silly, you buy whatever kind of things you need, house, car, whatever, you get that out of your system right away. And then the rest of it, invest it even in conservative stuff, you're going to be set forever. You won't have to do anything, and you can be creative and learn new skills and even make more money if you want. But it's one of those things. It's like it's a curse, and it's like you win all this money, but it's also a curse because so many people don't know what to do with that success. And we see that in business too. All of a sudden they launch something, and all of a sudden it's a 7-8 figure type of situation. And they're like, okay, what do I do? Okay, I got to do this. I got to buy this. And, it's like, why do you need a Bentley? You don't drive. Why do you, well, I wanted a Bentley. You don't drive. What are you wasting your money on that for? So you see stories of that all the time. So it's, I'm with you. It's like, I want the growth to be, at a decent pace, but sustainable. Not just a flash in the pan kind of thing. At that point, totally. You might as well just go to the casino and hope for the best. But
totally, and back to skills. So I've been teaching photographers now for about 5 years, and I keep noticing the same thing, that everybody wants the same results, but nobody is willing to actually improve their skill. They want the results at the skill level that they're at, which isn't possible. And that's, I think, a huge problem today. People want results, but they're not at the skill level to get those results. It's like wanting to marry somebody that's completely out of your league, and it's never going to happen. But you like convince yourself that it's going to happen, and you live in this like cloud world of like good thoughts, and it never happens. Then you have a real bad crash later on when you realize the truth of things. There was Ray Dalio. He's a billionaire. He talks about, he's really open with like how he's made money, and it seems like he wants to help people a lot. And I saw this one video of him talking about his progression to becoming a billionaire. And the one thing that stuck out to me was he started realizing the reality of things. So he would try something. He had these big visions of what he wanted to become, like all of us do. And he would try something and fail really bad at it. But, instead of getting down on himself, whatever, he analyzed the situation. So a couple of things. He analyzed the situation, and by analyzing it and trying to do better, he came to the realization of how things actually were. So he kept saying, I understood the reality of things. And so then he'd understand the reality of that one thing. Then he'd move on to the next bigger project. He'd mess up. Then he'd understand the reality of it. And for me, that I just love that so much, because people don't understand the reality of things. They're either underskilled, or they think they're, in a better place than they actually are. And when you start understanding the reality of things, then things start to change. Like, I have family members in Italy, in Peru, that are like, all for the lottery. Like, they'll go to Vegas and spend all their money on the slot machines. I'm like, what, like, why are you doing that? That's, for me, okay, if it's a hobby and you just like spending a few bucks, like, whatever. But, if you're going there thinking you're going to make money and thinking that's how you make money, like, that's not the actual reality. The reality is, why don't you figure out how to own the freaking casino, type thing? Or like, so that's sort of what's guided me. And, going back to the photography thing, it was the reality of things. It's like, okay, where's the money actually flowing? Like, yes, you can make some great money, 100, 200,000 a year as a photographer, videographer. But where's the actual money? Okay, it's having a product, not a service necessarily. Not saying services are bad, but, for me, it was like, okay, a product. So I started creating products, and it was like, what's the reality of owning a physical product versus a digital product? And that's just helped me along my path, is, the reality of things. I think people need just a wake up call. Like, maybe you're not as skilled, but that's fine. You just have to realize that you're not as skilled. So then you can actually get skilled. Like, certain students of mine, like, I don't tell this to anybody, but students of mine that have been students for probably 4 years now are in the exact same spot that they were 4 years ago as far as skill level. And they have the exact same questions for me, which is, how do I make money in photography? Like, first of all, you're asking the wrong questions, Anyway, I could rant on about that, but.
No, that speaks volumes. And especially now in 2021, if you don't have the skills in something, it is abundantly easy to get those skills. There's no shortage of online courses that are free or affordable to get you started. Now, obviously, if you want to grow and scale up and learn more, then you need to invest more. And a big paradigm shift for me years and years ago in my own personal and business growth was to look at things as investments and not as costs. Yes, it's still paying out currency, but it's like, I am investing in something. I'm investing 100%. In the future version of me. I'm investing in this skill that will allow me to take this particular aspect of my business or services to this level, which means then I would be able to do these things, which then would allow me to take it to here and do these things. And just looking at things as an investment. And when I talk with people, whether it's PR people or marketing people, or if I'm investing in a course or I'm buying something, I will ask, okay, what's the investment? And for a lot of people, it throws them off at first. They're like, you didn't say cost, you said investment. I said, well, yeah, that's how I'm looking at this situation, as an investment. It's an investment in my business or myself or a combination thereof. And it changes the dynamic with the conversation, because they're like, wow, somebody that gets it. They're looking at this as an investment. And for them, from a marketing and branding standpoint, they go, maybe I should change how I present this and say investment, and it only costs this. It's a shift, but it's a huge one, and it completely can change the dynamic of how things work.
100%. I got to that realization too, and I love that. It's here's a very ignorant way of thinking, is to never trust anybody and to believe that everything is a scam. That's like a really, really ignorant way of thinking about things. And if you think like that, you're literally never going to become an entrepreneur. Like, that's my thoughts about it. Like, you're not going to learn anything. Like you're staying in this very ignorant place where, yeah, there's scams out there. Yes, there's, people that you cannot trust. But, you have to be open to learning, to spending money. That's one of the biggest things too. Even for me, like at some point, beginning of my journey, I was like, I don't want to spend $1,000 for a course or $2,000 for a course or $500 an hour for like a consultant, or I don't want to buy this book. I don't have the money. But that's like so silly. Once I got over that, I see a good course, bam, $2,000. They usually have 30-day money back guarantees. So now I would literally like $2,000 here. If I see a good course, $1,000 there. A book, I'll buy this book. They have refund policies. If they suck, if they're scams, you get your money back. We're not in like freaking third world country here. You just, so I think people need to open up, like stop thinking everything's a scam. Stop thinking that you're being screwed left and right, and start taking advantage of all the education that's out there, all the courses, because people actually teach good things. They actually teach secret things. You've been through courses like every time I've gone through a course, I've learned at least one thing that's completely changed my business. And then that, whereas the rest of the people that didn't buy the course didn't know that. The more you spend, the more you're going to learn usually, in these groups, the more secrets you're going to learn. And then you can progress. So, I love that. I love that you're saying that, because that's, treat it as an investment 100%.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I figured we'd both be on the same page when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, Josh, I've loved our conversation today. Where can people find out more about you and all the awesome work you do? So you can go joshrossi.co. That's my photography. And then probably more importantly, since we're talking about education, go check out mentorcamp.io. That's a site that I run, and I wanted to basically take all these high price courses that we're talking about and make them into smaller, more digestible, and a lot more affordable courses. So like, there's stuff about digital marketing, how to freelance. I got a girl on there that makes $400,000 a year on Fiverr, copywriting from her home, and so it's not like stuff just me teaching, but there's all these instructors that I got that teach these amazing things that normally cost you thousands of dollars, and it's super cheap. So mentorcamp.io is, if you want to go learn skills, go check it out there. That's awesome. And I'll definitely have that in the show notes. So Josh, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you and this awesome work you're doing.
Yeah. Thanks for the interview.
Thanks for listening to the Breakfast Leadership Show, part of the Breakfast Leadership Network. Visit breakfastleadership.com for tips on empowering your business and your life.